Are you better off than you were 5 years ago? Is our country better than it was 5 years ago? Are we more stable than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago? Is the world closer to world peace or closer to world war than it was 5 years ago? Are we closer to a nuclear war today than we were 5 years ago? You have to remember this nuclear war thing. It was just a couple of years ago they started kicking this around and we all went, wait, I thought that was over. Don't get used to that. That is not normal anymore. Are we more respected in the world today than we were 5 years ago? Do bad guy countries fear us more or less than 5 years ago? Is our military more or less prepared for any major war than it was 5 years ago? By the way, couple that with your answer, is the world closer to world peace or world war? Does that concern you? Are our streets safer than they were 5 years ago? Our police, are they more respected? Remember, 5 years ago was the throes of BLM. It was 4 or 5 years ago that everybody was on the street and they were marching to reimagine the police and to put counselors out on the street instead of police officers. Are our cities struggling to hire more counselors or more police officers than they were 5 years ago? Are police officers more likely or less likely to jump in and help when there's a problem? Your 911 service, is it faster than it was 5 years ago? Or is it slower, the response time, than it was 5 years ago? Is our relationship between the police officers and blacks, Hispanics, anybody, is it better? Because that's what they were claiming. They needed counselors and they needed people to train the cops. So is our police officer, our police force, their relationship, is it better or worse or the same than it was 5 years ago? And even if it's the same, why? Didn't we go through all of that to fix that problem? Is it even close to being fixed? If someone commits a crime in America against you or against anybody that you know, are they more or less likely to go to jail? Our justice system, do you have more trust in it or less trust? If you don't trust the justice system and you don't trust the police and you don't trust the government, when you have a problem, who do you go to? Who is actually holding up the torch? I mean, it used to be you could go to the media, and the media would expose the bad guys, and the government would come in and take care of it. Or if the bad guys were the government, the people would take care of business. Do you have more faith in the government than you did 5 years ago? Do you have more faith in the media than you did 5 years ago? You know, we had to bail out the banks in 2008. Why? Why? Because they had become too big to fail. Remember? Too big to fail. We've got to stop this. Did they fix that problem? Are our big banks bigger or smaller than they were in 2008? Who was hurt by all of the fixes to make banks smaller so they would never be too big to fail? The banks that were hurt, were they the big banks or were they the small banks? Do you have trust in the security of your bank? Is that trust getting better or worse than it was 5 years ago? Do you have trust that our Treasury and our Federal Reserve have your best interest at heart? And is that getting better or worse? Is inflation better or worse than it was 5 years ago? Is your confidence in the people that are in charge, is your confidence in them knowing how to fix it, being able to even assess what's going on, is your confidence in them getting better or worse? Do you think they are adding to the problem or fixing the problem? You know, our new hopeful target for inflation is now 3%. So that means we're hoping to hit 3% additional inflation every single year. Not reversing. Prices don't go down, but they only go up from here 3% per year. That's our hope. Over the last 3 years, official inflation was around 12%. It's probably closer to 20. But their plan is to increase the inflation that we have right now by another 15% by the time the next president's term ends. Is that in the right direction or not? Is your gas price better or worse than it was 5 years ago? How about the price of insurance? Is that better or worse? Is it easier or harder for you to find a house? Find a house. Easier or more difficult than it was 5 years ago? Your mortgage rate, is it lower or higher than it was 5 years ago? Price of milk? Our schools, do you feel our children are more safe or less safe in their schools than you did 5 years ago? Remember, it was about 3 years ago we started finding CRT. All of this DEI, all of this stuff has happened under this president. Do you have more confidence in your school or less confidence in your school? Do you have more confidence in your school's librarian or less confidence? Are our children better educated or worse than 5 years ago? Are our children more stable mentally than they were before all this gobbledygook started? Do you believe that we have a handle on terrorism? Is our country more safe from terrorists or less safe than it was 5 years ago? How do you feel about your job? I can't think of a category that has gotten better. Can you? Every category that I look at, it doesn't speak of health in any way, shape, or form. Are we happier than we were 5 years ago? Are we more comfortable? Are we more content? Not in any category. Not in a single category, at least that I can find. Is Afghanistan better off? Is Israel better off? Is Ukraine better off? There is a reckoning that is coming. There's a reckoning that is coming. By the way, I just keep thinking more. How about electricity rates? Do you feel like we will have power when needed? Is that confidence better or worse? Our border, better or worse? Your freedom, the fundamentals of our Bill of Rights, do you have more confidence or less confidence that the people in Washington, I don't care what party they're from, are actually going to enforce the Bill of Rights? This is called a reckoning. When a country goes this far off, there is a reckoning that comes. It's like you tell your kids, they're getting bad grades in school. You're going to flunk. Come on, work harder. Come on, how can we help you? Let's go. Let's get we got to get to a tutor, whatever it is. And the kid doesn't do it. And you're like, there's going to come a time where it's too late for you and you're going to flunk. There's going to come a time where it's too late for you and you're not going to be able to make it into college. That's a reckoning. And it's just a natural response to really bad, screwed up ideas. And until you change your ways, the reckoning just gets worse and worse and worse. When it comes, it's devastating. One of my favorite lines, my favorite sayings is, nothing will change if nothing changes. We're shuffling the deck, and we're moving the chairs around the table. We're just moving the chairs around the table. We're moving the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. If nothing changes, nothing will change. And it's getting worse and worse and worse.